Part 1. Success outside, emptiness inside. What if I told you most of what you think you control in your life, your success, your choices, your identity, is a carefully crafted illusion, and worse, that you built it yourself? We live in a world that worships personal responsibility, hustle culture, and the seductive idea that if you just try hard enough, you can control your entire life. You hear it everywhere, from motivational gurus to LinkedIn influencers. You are the master of your fate. But beneath that surface-level empowerment lies a dangerous lie. A lie we tell ourselves every day. Philosophers have warned us for centuries. Lao Tzu once wrote, "He who conquers others is strong. He who conquers himself is mighty." But what happens when we don't even know who we are? When the self we're conquering is a mask, an illusion? This is not just a philosophical debate. It's a daily emotional reality, especially for those of us who are the misunderstood introvert, the silent thinkers carrying the weight of expectation, buried beneath layers of social performance. What Carl Jung called the persona, a social mask we wear so often, we forget the face underneath. Let me take you into a real moment. I was sitting across from a friend in a dimly lit cafe, someone who had achieved what most people dream of: six-figure income, a house with a view, social clout. But he looked tired, bone tired. He said, "I don't know what's real anymore. I got everything I worked for, and I still feel like a fraud." That moment hit me. This wasn't burnout. This was something deeper. This was existential vertigo, the quiet crisis of our generation. We've been conditioned to measure control by how well we manipulate the world outside us, our income, our appearance, our success. But rarely do we pause to ask, what am I hiding from myself? Whose voice is whispering my decisions? Is my life truly mine, or just a reaction to fear and expectation? And that's what this video is about. A journey into the shadow of self-deception, where the illusion of control becomes a prison and repressed emotions silently dictate our path. We'll explore how we twist reality to serve our ego, why confirmation bias blinds us to the truth, and how the self-serving bias creates a fragile, defensive self that can't truly grow. But more importantly, we'll explore how to break free. Because when we begin to unveil the shadow, when we stop hiding behind success, performance, and denial, we open the door to something real: inner freedom. Not the kind that gets you likes, but the kind that lets you look in the mirror and finally see your face. In the next chapter, we'll dive into the first illusion, the belief that we control more than we do, and how that false belief shapes your destiny in ways you don't even see coming. If you're ready to face your shadow, keep watching. Part 2, the illusion of control. Let's begin with a simple but uncomfortable truth: you are not in control. Not in the way you think. We tell ourselves stories that our success came from discipline, that our relationships last because we're good people, that when things fall apart, it's because of bad luck, or worse, someone else's failure. But what if this belief in personal control is not empowerment, but self-deception? The false belief of the rational actor. Modern society rests on the myth of the rational individual, that we are in charge of our actions, logical in our decisions, and always capable of shaping our destiny. It sounds noble, empowering even, but this belief crumbles under psychological and philosophical scrutiny. Psychologist Ellen Langer coined the term the illusion of control to describe how people consistently overestimate their influence over outcomes. We press elevator buttons harder, as if that'll make it arrive faster. We buy lottery tickets from lucky vendors. We double-check the stove 5 times, hoping ritual can replace randomness. On a deeper level, we assume that our hard work alone earned us our status, disregarding invisible systems, where we were born, who mentored us, what trauma we inherited. This isn't just mistaken thinking, it's a coping mechanism. It helps us feel stable in a world that's inherently chaotic. The Stoic counterpoint, accepting the uncontrollable. Epictetus, the Stoic philosopher, offered a sobering reminder. Some things are up to us and some are not. The core of Stoic wisdom lies not in total control, but in recognizing the boundaries between what we can and cannot change. We can choose our actions, We can't control outcomes. But here's the problem. Most of us live in denial of this line. We cling to the illusion of control because admitting otherwise feels like surrender, like chaos, like failure. The introvert's silent struggle. For the misunderstood introvert, this illusion becomes even more layered. Many introverts cope with the world by over-controlling their internal environment, hyper-analyzing conversations, planning every move, overthinking outcomes. We wear the social mask to blend in, to avoid attention, to survive. But this mask is also a form of control, a shield, a curated performance. And over time, it disconnects us from the authentic self we've buried underneath. Beneath that mask are repressed emotions, anger, grief, unmet needs that we try to outthink instead of feel. But no amount of mental control can contain what the heart refuses to suppress. The cost of overconfidence. The illusion of control has consequences beyond emotional disconnection. It leads to overconfidence, a known cognitive bias with real-world impact. In business, overconfident CEOs make riskier decisions and often underperform. In relationships, we assume we understand our partners perfectly until conflict reveals how little we've actually listened. In health, we ignore symptoms, confident it's nothing until it's too late. Psychologist Daniel Kahneman warned us, overconfidence is the bias most likely to destroy wealth in relationships. Why? Because overconfidence blinds us to feedback. And without feedback, there is no correction, no growth, only repeated mistakes. A Buddhist lens, control is suffering. In Buddhist philosophy, the desire to control is a root cause of dukkha, often translated as suffering. We suffer because we cling to identity, to outcomes, to the false comfort of control. The Buddha didn't suggest total passivity. He taught non-attachment, the ability to act with full intention without demanding a guaranteed result. This is where Western Stoicism and Eastern Buddhism meet, in a quiet humility before life's unpredictability. Real-world example, the job loss spiral. Imagine a man in his 40s, mid-career, respected, provider. He loses his job, not because he failed, but because the company restructures. If he believes his success was entirely his doing, then this failure must also be his fault. He spirals. Shame kicks in, identity collapses. But if he sees clearly that life contains both effort and randomness, he grieves, yes, but doesn't self-destruct. He adapts, reflects, evolves. The illusion of control didn't protect him. Letting go of that illusion did. From control to awareness. So what's the alternative? Not apathy, not surrender, but conscious surrender. It begins with acknowledging that control is limited, but awareness is infinite. You may not control every outcome, but you can observe your patterns. You can question your biases. You can witness the illusion instead of being ruled by it. Part 3. The power of confirmation bias. What if most of what you believe isn't the truth, but a mirror reflecting only what you want to see? This is the quiet power of confirmation bias. It doesn't shout, it doesn't lie outright, it simply filters. And that filter, it bends reality to protect your sense of self, even if it costs you clarity, connection, and growth. What is confirmation bias? In psychological terms, confirmation bias is the tendency to search for, interpret, and recall information in a way that confirms one's pre-existing beliefs or values. It means this: when you believe the world is unfair, you'll only notice injustice. When you think you're unlovable, you'll filter out every sign of affection. When you believe you're smarter than others, you'll only seek voices that validate you. In short, you don't see reality. You see a version of reality curated by your ego, and that version becomes your prison. Why we're wired this way. The human mind is designed to avoid cognitive dissonance, that sharp, uncomfortable clash between what we believe and what we perceive. So rather than revise our beliefs, we unconsciously revise our reality. You believe you're a good person, so when you hurt someone, the mind whispers, "They misunderstood me." You believe you're not enough. So when you succeed, the voice inside says, that was just luck. This isn't conscious, it's survival. Carl Jung once wrote, people will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own souls. And this is the price of confirmation bias. We stay blind to the truth because the truth threatens who we think we are. The social mask and the echo chamber. For the misunderstood introvert, confirmation bias often works in silence. We retreat inward, feeling unseen or unheard, believing the world doesn't understand us. And so we stop trying to be understood. And the mask, the social persona, grows stronger. We wear it at work, in family dinners, even in solitude. We become curators of comfort. We watch videos that agree with us. We follow voices that praise our worldview. We avoid the discomfort of challenge, critique, or contradiction. It becomes an echo chamber, not just online, but in the mind. And ironically, this chamber becomes lonelier over time. Because the more we reject new perspectives, the further we drift from authentic connection. Story: the artist who couldn't hear. There was once a painter, talented, brilliant, deeply emotional. She poured her soul into her work. But after a few harsh critiques early in her career, she began to believe the world was against her creativity. Years later, when she was invited to exhibit again, she refused. I already know what they'll say, she told herself. They never understood me. But the truth? She never allowed herself to be seen again. Her belief had become a self-fulfilling prophecy, reinforced by every voice she silenced, every opportunity she avoided, every mirror she turned away from. That's confirmation bias in its most tragic form. We imprison ourselves to protect ourselves. Philosophical insight: Nietzsche and the comfort of lies. Friedrich Nietzsche observed, convictions are more dangerous enemies of truth than lies, because lies can be disproven. But convictions, beliefs we hold close to our identity, are rarely questioned. Confirmation bias is how we protect those convictions. It's how we maintain the illusion that we're always right, that we're always the victim, or that we're always the hero. But there's no growth in that illusion. There's only stagnation. Breaking free: how to see beyond the bias. How do we escape a bias we don't know we have? It starts with a question. What am I afraid to know about myself? Seek out voices that challenge you, not flatter you. Read thinkers from opposite ends of your worldview. Welcome disagreement, not as threat, but as mirror. In Buddhism, there's the concept of beginner's mind, a state of openness where every moment is a chance to learn, not a chance to be right. It's humility in action, and it's terrifying because it requires letting go of certainty. But certainty is the enemy of transformation. And without transformation, we're just performers in a play we didn't write, reciting lines we've forgotten how to question. The inner work: Jung and the shadow. Jung's concept of the shadow is inseparable from confirmation bias. The shadow is not evil. It's everything you refuse to acknowledge in yourself. The pride beneath your humility, the envy beneath your support, the fear beneath your confidence. Confirmation bias feeds the persona, the social mask. But breaking bias awakens the shadow, and that's when individuation begins, when the real you starts to emerge from the fragments. But be warned, it's not pleasant. Growth never is. Part 4: the self-serving bias and the cost of false pride. Imagine living in a world where every win is yours alone, but every failure belongs to someone else. That world may sound unfair, narcissistic even. But here's the uncomfortable truth. You and I live there more often than we'd like to admit. It's not arrogance. It's not evil. It's the self-serving bias, a subtle yet powerful distortion in how we interpret life. A defense mechanism that protects our ego, while slowly eroding our capacity for truth, humility, and connection. What is the self-serving bias? In psychology, the self-serving bias refers to the tendency to attribute our successes to internal factors, like talent or effort, and our failures to external factors, like bad luck or the actions of others. Got a promotion? I worked hard, I earned this. Got rejected? They don't recognize talent, they're biased. Relationship fell apart. They were toxic. I did my best. On the surface, it sounds like harmless confidence. But underneath, it creates a fragile self-image that cannot bear responsibility. We become like kings in a crumbling castle, holding the crown but blaming the world for every crack in the walls. The mask of pride in the introvert's quiet armor. For the misunderstood introvert, the self-serving bias can be especially deceptive. Because introverts are often highly introspective, we assume we're deeply self-aware. We pride ourselves on inner depth. But this can lead to an emotional blind spot, mistaking reflection for accountability. We may carry unspoken stories. I'm not at fault, I just withdraw because I'm sensitive. People misunderstand me, that's why I'm distant. They're too loud, too shallow, I prefer solitude. And while these may contain truth, they can also be subtle shields, deflecting responsibility, hiding unhealed wounds, and protecting pride. The social mask in this case isn't extroverted charm, it's silent superiority. A lesson from Marcus Aurelius. The Stoic Emperor Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." But when we habitually shift blame outward, we deny that power. We trade inner strength for narratives of victimhood. We become characters in stories where we're always right and always misunderstood. And here lies the hidden cost. You can't change what you refuse to own. Real-world story, the divorce that wasn't just one person's fault. I once spoke with a man, early 50s, going through a divorce. He was angry, bitter, convinced his wife had changed. She stopped supporting me. She never appreciated who I am. But after a long pause, he confessed something quietly. Maybe I stopped listening years ago. Maybe I just assumed she'd always be there because I believed I deserved it. That moment broke something in him, but it also healed something because for the first time, he dropped the mask. He saw himself not as a victim or a villain, but as a participant in his own life. Responsibility returned, and with it, the possibility of redemption. Why we avoid responsibility. Taking responsibility feels threatening. Why? Because it threatens the story. The story that we're good, that we're trying, that we've done our best. To question that feels like self-betrayal. But as Carl Jung said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. The self-serving bias keeps the unconscious unconscious. It protects us from the truth, but at what cost? It stunts our growth. It isolates us emotionally. It weakens empathy. It creates defensiveness instead of dialogue. It turns relationships into blame games, and eventually, it leaves us alone with our delusions. Eastern insight, the mirror of karma. In Eastern philosophy, particularly in Hinduism and Buddhism, there is the idea of karma as a mirror. Not punishment, not fate, but reflection. What you send into the world eventually returns. But if you refuse to see how your actions shape that world, you'll spend your life dodging reflections. The self-serving bias is an attempt to shatter that mirror, but the truth always finds a way back. As the Tao Te Ching teaches, knowing others is intelligence. Knowing yourself is true wisdom. And wisdom begins when we stop editing the truth to suit our pride. Steps to begin reclaiming responsibility. 1. Slow down your internal storytelling. When something goes wrong, pause. Ask, is there something I could have done differently? Not from shame, but from curiosity. 2. Invite honest feedback. From partners, friends, mentors. Not to validate, but to illuminate. 3. Journal without filters. Write what you don't want to admit. Let your shadow speak. 4. Replace pride with humility, not weakness. Humility is strength without armor. It's the courage to say, I was wrong, I can grow, I'm not perfect, and that's okay. In the words of Soren Kierkegaard, there are two ways to be fooled. One is to believe what isn't true. The other is to refuse to believe what is true. The self-serving bias ensures both. But if we learn to see it, if we gather the strength to admit the truth, even when it wounds our pride, we don't lose ourselves. we finally begin to meet ourselves. Part 5, the final reflection. A quiet truth behind the noise. We spend most of our lives perfecting a version of ourselves we can survive inside. But survival is not the same as wholeness. The social mask keeps us liked. The illusion of control keeps us sane. The self-serving stories keep us comfortable, but none of them keep us free. And if you've ever lain awake at night feeling like something's off, even when everything looks fine on the outside, that's not weakness. That's your deeper self knocking on the walls of your persona, asking to be seen. Here's what no one tells you. Growth isn't about becoming better, it's about becoming more honest. You don't need to be perfect, you need to be real. True power is the ability to say, I was wrong. I didn't see clearly, but now I will try. That moment, right there, is the beginning of awakening. So if you felt something today, don't scroll past it. Sit with it. Not everything that's broken needs to be fixed. Some things need to be understood. Because only when you stop deceiving yourself can you finally meet the version of you that was waiting all along. If you're ready to keep walking this path, subscribe. This is where we unmask. This is where the noise ends and the truth begins.